Alright guys, welcome back to Game Education. For this video we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not gonna look at a 1v1, we're going to look at a 10v10. And specifically this map, Tannenberg, because the objectives are so far back, and with it being a 10v10 the game usually lasts a full 60 minutes. So we can have a look at a few different things that you can't really look at in the smaller and shorter games. And so what we're going to look at is the short, which is the units you have right now and how they can be used, and what units can counter which other ones. Then we're also going to have a look at the long, as I call it, which is your overall strategy for the 60 minutes, and this replay is a 60-minute replay. What is your strategy going to be for those full 60 minutes? You're not going to win the game or even lose the game in the first 10 minutes. So, keeping that in mind and always working towards something is going to serve you quite well. And then the other aspect would be, your deck and how you built your deck and what units you made available to yourself in A, B, and C phase. And most of this kind of game is going to take place during C phase, so especially special attention has to be given to that phase. So instead of looking at the whole map with the whole 20 players, which I think would be quite difficult to keep track of. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at just this one rectangle of battle here. And what we have on the right is a Russian 2nd Guard Tanks Corps player, 2nd Indian Head, 3rd US, and on the left we have a 20th Panzer. Above him is a 5th Panzer player as well. So yes, it is 2-3 at the start of the game, but a Rapana player just come along on the left side here to help 20th Panzer and even out those odds. So let's just let them deploy and see where they send their units. And so while they're doing that, we can have a look as well at the terrain here and try to think, what are the key features of the terrain here? What kind of units do you need to bring? What kind of units is your opponent going to bring to try and gain their own advantage? So taking control of the forests here is quite important. If you control the forest, you then gain access to the other side of the forest, and for both sides here, the other side of the forest is something they don't want their opponent to have access to. And you can set up quite a defensive kind of perimeter on both sides, and there's a nice kind of fallback zone forest as well. So the 20th Panzer player here just brings in 3 Ersatztruppen, an MG42 in the buildings there, whereas the Russian player does bring quite a lot of CQC Infantry. And CQC Infantry is the infantry you want to be able to control forests with. If you're using infantry to do that, you can of course also use planes and mortars and so on. Really any kind of damage, HE damage, is enough to help you control a forest. It doesn't only need to be infantry. And saying that, a mortar is being fired already, and we'll see where that one's going to land. Targeting the basics at the northern side there. So the Russian player, not that the player themselves is Russian, but are playing a Russian division, has a Tenko Desantniki, a leader, some Saperi PPSH, and a Dozor Recon unit. Not sure what the Recon unit is going to do in the forest here, but the Tenko Desantnikis are a solid choice as they come with a Molotov cocktail. And Molotov cocktails are going to let them win any CQC engagements against other soft targets fairly easily, as the ground will be on fire, and most humans don't deal well standing on fire. So in go the Tenko Desantnikis versus the Ersatztruppen. Should be an easy win for them. And this is what the CQC Infantry are for. If you bring Ersatztruppen, they were deleted. You saw that yourself, about 3 seconds, although it was two squads on one. Some poor micromanagement of the Dozor here brings him into the infantry bubble, and moving infantry units take more damage than stationary ones. Down he goes, but the Tenko Desantniki, all of the units now are sent to attack the Ersatztruppen, and one is almost dead, already falling back. The other one is trying to be moved away, takes a couple of injuries, and they know they cannot win this fight, and so off they go. However, more cleverly, the pioneer units have been brought into the northern side of the forest there, and these pioneer units come with HE shells, frag grenades. Frag grenades, just like Molotov cocktails, are exceptionally good at killing other soft targets such as enemy infantry squads. However, the second Indian head player, I think, has also brought a unit of engineers, which likewise have a HE grenade. So the Bjorta Stalin here is holding down the corridor, and it looks like the third US player brought in a jumbo, while the Russian player has brought in a T-34-85. I would put this battle in the Bjorta Stalin's favor. Looks like it's already killed the ISU-152 that was brought in. That's unfortunate for the Russian player. The ISU-152, of course, being an absolutely excellent soft target destroyer, not so great, but definitely capable against other tanks. So neither groups of infantry being moved yet, but also this group of infantry not being reinforced. And the units here, there's a T-34-85, there's a jumbo, there's half tracks, the M3 Scout, the BA-10M, and essentially they are just holding ground because of a single Bjorta Stalin. And that's just not what you might call economy of force. If you have units, then generally you should be finding some way to use them. And if you're not and your opponent is, then that is essentially losing. That's what losing looks like. Doesn't necessarily have to be that you are losing units, but if you're not using your units and your opponent is, then that is almost the same. So the engineers here, looks like they did get a grenade off on the pioneers, maybe. Yep, they're reloading now, and so they took out this pioneer squad all by themselves. However, the second pioneer squad comes in, will also throw a grenade. Both of them throw grenades at the same time. Boom. Engineers lose, but these pioneers also kind of lose. Mortars now firing probably on where the infantry just were. So this is, another effective way to control a forest is with mortars. They aim fast, they fire fast, and as we can see here, they take out infantry fairly well as long as they're not too far away and you have, more than one. Now these infantry could have been brought further up here to help engage these other infantry. However, then these Panzer Grenadiers would have had free roam through the forest here. So although it is only one player here essentially, I think, and no, the 5th Panzer player now, that's his infantry here has come to help out. So we have 5th Panzer and 20th Panzer here against 2nd Indian Head, 3rd US, 2nd Guards Tank Corps. SS-Truppen gaining eyes on the Saperi here, but also the half-track comes to shut them down and send them packing. But the Russian player not taking advantage of the influence line here, and here comes the Rapana player, it looks like, late to the party, fashionably late, one might say. And the Axis infantry here tried to cross the road but got caught out by all of these 50 cals on the half tracks, and they're running for their lives. They're behind enemy lines, and if these engineers catch them yet, they will surrender just like that. A little bit danger close there with the mortars raining almost on top of his own half track. Yes, pretty much on top. Oh dear, this is, oof, that was close. So the Allies gaining the advantage now, although the Tenko Desaniki coming under fire, using up all of their Molotov cocktails already, and so this is their special weapon. This is their automatic win tool. But once they're gone, then it's not so it's not really a automatic win anymore. But then beautifully in comes the mortar fire again, fast aiming, fast firing, and right on top of the infantry, winning the infantry fight for those infantry units here, the Tanko Desaniki, the Seperi, that we're just about to lose. We're just about perhaps to get... No, they wouldn't have been surrendered. There's a leader there. So a half-track made a suicidal rush and spotted some of the units over here. The Rapana player being sneaky with some Recon infantry squads on the very bottom side of the map here, and coming in with CQC Infantry. These Yakari have also the Molotov cocktails. The Pioneer, of course, have the grenades, but the mortars being put to very quick use once more, taking out Sniper already, almost taking out the anti-tank rifle infantry. And so having these kinds of units, these mortars or artillery on a control group, will allow you to use them so much quicker. And so all you do is you drag a box over the units you want to select, press Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and then whenever you press 1 or press 2 or press 3, you will automatically select those units. And that's how you get this kind of quick response fire out of your artillery units. So you can be focusing on the infantry game at hand here, and then quickly press 1, quickly press T, and select where you want them to fire, and that's it. You press 3 buttons, and it took you 2 seconds. So in come the CQC Infantry from Finland, supported by a leader behind them, giving them 1-star veterancy, and pushing all of the allied infantry out. They reach the forest's edge here, seemingly see all these vehicles with machine guns waiting for them, and decide they would rather not face that frontally, and so hop back into the forest there. Mortar comes down on just where they were, just missing these Pioneeri. They're throwing a grenade onto these armored LMG rifles, and this is like a key kind of idea here for Steel Division 2. In a forest fight, are you going to bring normal infantry with machine guns, or are you going to bring infantry that has a grenade? And the answer is, you're going to bring infantry with a grenade, because they're going to win. Or you're going to be such a super fast hero with so many mortars that you don't even need the CQC infantry, but most of the time the CQC infantry is more reliable and faster. In come Tanko Desanikis fighting with the Yakari. Throw 2 onto that one Yakari, another 2 onto the Tanko Desanikis. It's close. It looks like it might be in the Yakari's favor. There we go. Down goes one Tanko, and in response they decide they are going to off-map the entire forest here. I doubt they can see anything that's inside the forest really, other than these units. Yeah, they can't see what's inside, and to me that's kind of a waste. You save the off maps for when you know there's a lot of enemy units there, because you know you're going to kill them, or alternatively you do it when you're ready to reinforce with more infantry and quickly get some surrenders. But in this case, there's one leader and one anti-tank rifle unit there. Is it worth it? I would say no. You could achieve the same result just with a couple of infantry units. Regardless, boom, down comes the boom. And all the 50 cows. Oh my god. Now that's an AA net. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 50 cals at least they're firing, even more with the ZSU there. My word. So the forest once more now changes into allied hands, but there is some artillery starting to come down onto this T-3485 and also targeted at the Jumbo, but they reverse out of it. That's the right decision. Never leave your tank standing in artillery fire. And this Rapana play is being very sneaky with these recon units in the southern side of the map here. And this is the flaw of this small defense here by the Russian player, just in this one small part of the forest here. The map extends to the white line. And that's where you have to defend until. And if you don't, then don't be surprised when shenanigans like this happen. Tanks coming to fight. Panzer IV versus T-34-85, also with the Bjorta Stalin here. I would not take this fight. These tanks should be reversing, in my opinion. They're not going to penetrate this Bjorta Stalin. And of course the Bjorta Stalin is not likely to penetrate the Jumbo either. They're just firing at each other for fun mostly at this stage. In come much more CQC Infantry from Finland. And also by the Allies, they have 2 engineer squads, 3 engineer squads. This one's almost down. Some Gvardia, some basics. Of course, the magic mortars firing once more. This time landing on their own units. Not a great choice. Pinning their own engineers there, which now are stuck behind enemy lines. The engineers here taking a grenade but killing one pioneer squad. Looks like they're about to be met in force. And so, I mean, we can see here that two squads of infantry is not going to be enough for a push. More are coming, but they're coming piecemeal. They're coming 2, and then 2 more, and then 2 more. And here Finland has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 CQC infantry squads coming in at the same time. The half-tracks here making a push, and Hellcats on the northern side, they're also making a push, but being taken out by all these anti-tank guns that are hanging about everywhere in the forest. There's one there. There's one over here. And one of them gets surrendered by the leader here. And this Hellcat looks like is going to be killed by a very small anti-tank gun. Down it goes. So these small anti-tank guns do have their uses, and another off-map being brought out now. I'm still not sure if it's worth it. It's going to catch 3, maybe 4 infantry squads, and they cost about 80 points, between 100 points. Ideally you would save your off-maps for, key occasions, important things, not just for your average battle. Alternatively, use your mortars if they're not getting counter-batteried. And this Rajakari here now, with full eyes on this whole back line here. This is not going to end well. Also a Sissy here, and the Sissy has a radio. And having that radio now will extend the radio net over these units in the back line here. And the artillery, these 155mm artillery have radios, and they will be able to fire with something like laser accuracy. In come the first round, almost hitting those 2 AA pieces, the ZSU and the M15. ZSU does get moved quickly though, credit to the player there. Not sure if it's going to be far enough. And there is something to be learned from this, which is, if we take a look at the, say, Gvardia unit in the building here, its icon is flashing. Its icon is flashing because it's hidden. It can't be seen. Now, is that true of the Jumbo, of the M15, of the ZSU? No, because they can be seen by the Recon units out here, and the Recon units are flashing, and they can't be seen. But other than the proliferous artillery raining down on their back line, and the fact that the unit cards themselves are not flashing, there isn't really any other indicator that the Recon infantry is sitting there, because they don't affect the influence line. And quite often, we can get stuck into this mindset of only looking at the influence line as a judge of, what we need to be worried about, or what we need to care about. And so in this case, the influence line is quite far away from this forest, and maybe the players think, the influence line is fine, there's nothing to worry about, while their back line is being pounded by 155mm artillery, which is not going to go well for anybody, to be honest. In comes another shot. No kills yet. mortars in the forest here, the 60mm mortars, have even faster aiming and firing than the 80mm mortars, and they are great anti-infantry tools. In goes a huge explosion, taking out the ZSU. Big boom, and bye bye. Ooh, and down goes another. Down goes the M15. There's 2 AA pieces now taken out. Tanko Desaniki getting encircled here and left to fight alone. More pioneers going ahead of them and holding the line here. Some nice scouts in location here. Can see pretty good line of sight there. Also, we see the card is flashing. They are not spotted. They are quite well hidden. In comes another artillery straight onto the half tracks here, and this forest is starting to look a bit burned out and devastated, and it's been subject to a lot of explosions. So scouts now spotted. Card not flashing. Start receiving fire from the pack and the Panzer IV. Decide maybe crossing the road isn't the best idea, but it's a little bit late to be changing their mind. I don't think they're going to make it back into the forest. And now the Zen Art 37mm there receiving further artillery battery thanks to these sneaky recon units. The half tracks making a dash for it. T-34-85 1944s coming in to help. Now they do actually have the APCR. The APCR that has 180mm of penetration at 1500 meters. They are in 1500 meters. They can use the APCR. So they've got a reasonable chance of penetrating this boy to Stalin, and it's just bouncing them for days. Oh no. How many hits is that now? Bounce, bounce, miss. Georgia Stalin only needs one hit to ruin their day. Starts reversing, gets the transmission damage, gets the shooter knocked out, has suffered almost every critical known to SD2 kind so far without being penetrated, it seems, and then they're running out of APCR to fire. In comes a rocket plane. Rapana rocket plane fires on the tanks and receives the 50 cal hell. Will it make it out alive? Looks okay. Trailing smoke now, but the AA is trailing off, and it makes it out. Then smoke is rising now fairly heavily from the back lines. In comes a nice rocket barrage straight onto that T-34-85. Takes it out. Zen artillery receiving the artillery treatment, and the anti-air at the back here is just being assassinated. In comes another, the 37mm artillery gone. The infantry units here almost pinned down, suppressed. Down goes an M15 CGMC. I think that was the AI controlled player doing that. And the forest is now firmly under Axis control and quite saturated with CQC infantry. The Allies do have a small line of infantry here, but will it be enough to stem the tide and stop them from crossing the road into this forest? Because controlling this forest would pretty much spell the end, I think, for the defense of this area and the other area here. And this artillery, pinpoint accurate, know exactly what to aim for and can absolutely hit it. It's almost shooting fish in a barrel at this stage. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 large artillery pieces, some 2 mortars in the back, 4 more mortars there in a cluster, infantry being pinned down and tanks retreating, perhaps wondering how they are still being seen and destroyed no matter how far how far back they move. They can't seem to find any relief. Rocket plane coming in on a bunch of M10A1 destroyers here who seem intent on launching a kind of Zerg attack of some sort. Cluster plane, the rocket plane doesn't get any kills. Does stress him out though. In comes the bomber. Bomber makes 1 fall back. Receives the 50 cal treatment but does get out. Destroyers now reversing, deciding against their endeavor. Down comes an off map now on these half tracks. Not sure the best use of the off map there, but it's an easy way sometimes to try and suppress or kill an area that you can't quite see. We do see that the infantry controlling this forest are not on the edge, so maybe not providing enough recon there, but the Rajkari is providing still a lot of sight here. And this looks like a really tempting target. Wow. Those units were lucky the truck didn't take them out. No respite, no brakes. You can stop still for 5 seconds at most before the artillery starts landing on you. Oh my god. It's relentless. There's no income the rockets now as well. And the Axis are just making short work of anything that hangs about within this cone of vision here. The artillery, the rockets, they're all coming down. Not knowing any way to progress down this corridor without being able to take out the Bjoy Stalin, and perhaps not seeing the value in attempting to move through the forest here on the southern side. If a breakthrough happens now into this forest, then it would be pretty much over, I think. So in goes some Finnish, let's say, recon units, recon sacrifices, sent out to see what exactly is there going to be to fight. Looks like they are moving up now. Oof. Grill there, getting a very nice shot onto the T-34-85 leader. And the Bjoy Stalin still alive. Still causing havoc. Down comes an off-map perfectly on top of a real cluster of units. That's a good targeting there as long as they stay inside the circle there. 60mm mortars firing on infantry kind of outside of our rectangle. Stay outside of that. So how is the rectangle looking at the moment? Not much has changed really in the forest here. This is still held actually by the same units that were holding it previously. There is one engineer now making a kind of exploratory foray, although it is a little bit too late when you're almost 30 minutes into the match, I would say. The Recon infantry here just, well, providing sight, that's all it does, but in doing so, and especially with the radio recon, allowing artillery to fire with excellent accuracy, allow off maps to come down where you know groups of units are, and the allies are just suffering now, suffering because of one recon unit, 2 recon units let's say, but mostly one. Artillery, artillery, and more artillery, and once the artillery is done there'll be some rockets too. And this forest now, the infantry line has been broken, and it doesn't look like there's any infantry coming on this side from the Russian team. Maybe these infantry will be coming down, trying to insert themselves into the forest here on the northern side. They have to bring something, or this forest will be lost. The Axis CQC Infantry just still coming in droves. artillery softening up whatever's left before they arrive. That Gavadia will not be an issue. Jumbo advancing. Finally spots something. Not sure how long it can last under such concentrated fire. Does have huge armor. Gets shot in the side, just slightly in the side by the Bjornstalin there, done. Or it could have even been from the front, who knows. And the smoke, the smoke now rising from this area here is significant, and the craters rather obvious. These infantry are coming in. Somebody's messaged. This is the 5th Panzer player messaged mortars coming. So not these mortars are coming. Something pinned one of them down. Perhaps some artillery landing nearby, but in come the Rangers. Now only 2 engineer squads and 3 Rangers LMG, but in comes the mortar fires that were promised, the promised mortars, the coming of the mortars, the mortar apocalypse, and these infantry are totally countered. A perfect counter. And the counter was vision and mortars. The infantry unit Yakari here didn't really engage the infantry. Couldn't engage 5 infantry units, but what he did provide was the recon from standing here, that these infantry are coming, and the 5th Panzer player having reflexes of a god microed his mortar to fire on this area, and the stars aligned, and those infantry got hit by a barrage of mortars and are now retreating, as trying to go into the forest at this stage would just result in a very easy surrender. So tanks still trying to fight. Russians bringing in more T-34-85s to fight this Bjornstalin and the T-4s, P-4s that are fighting it, and they're just not gonna do it. At that range, at the maximum range, their APCR is just not gonna do it against this Bjornstalin. At max range, they can't even use the APCR at 2 kilometers. So at this range, they're just using their standard 145 penetration, and they're not even shooting the Bjornstalin. They're shooting the P4s. Now they're shooting the Bjornstalin. But in comes artillery on top of the tanks. They cannot stay still for 5 seconds. And the problem with tanks is when they're moving, their accuracy is awful. And the other problem is, down goes the 1944 to that artillery. This is hell. This is hell. And this is hell caused by a recon unit and artillery. In comes an off map perfectly onto that group of infantry. And at this stage, you could call it time of death. 32 minutes, 31 minutes and 10 seconds. 31 minutes. Call it. It's pretty much stopped beating on the Allies' side. In come rockets right into the reinforcement zone here. And the problem now is that, well, you've got one reinforcement road, and it's going to come out of the forest here, or it's going to, at least branch at this crossroads here. And so if you aim pretty much anywhere along this road here now with artillery or with rockets, you've got a pretty solid chance of hitting things. And the infantry that was here is now gone, killed by something that we didn't see. The rest of the infantry are moving up. A large move of units here on the Axis side, both the Bjornstalin, Panther G in the north there, all the infantry moving through the forest here. These mortars getting ripped apart by the infantry. But M10A1 destroyers coming down the main road here, trying to get this Panther G. Panther G reversing, doesn't want to take any of that APCR, but they are moving. And they're gonna have worse accuracy because they're moving. Now turning their sights. Oh, what? Miss, gets the hit, gets the penetration. Kills one, M10A1. Will they get another hit on the Panther? Fires. Misses. Down goes another M21. One of them is falling back. Only one left. Gets the damage. Fires the APCR. Misses. And that's it for those tanks. And there is not much left on the Axis side anymore. This forest remains the same, and at this stage it could almost be something like, you know, paying for these units didn't really do anything. Could even be called a waste of units, because if you buy something and you don't use it, that's a waste of points. And using it to hold this forest while not holding this part of the forest and suffering the consequences of that, you know, is not great use of, you know, your units and your forces. Second Indian Head trying another Rangers LMG rush. In comes some rockets, softening up the forest here, pinning down infantry. Another rocket barrage coming in. That's beautiful. That's the xylophones. A little bit ill-timed, I would say. Could have been fired just a little bit later, because these units are pinned down now. There is an off-map coming as well, though. Will the Rangers make it in before these infantry regain their suppression and just start fighting back? That's a lot of infantry in the forest and only 4 Rangers LMG squads. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 CQC infantry squads, and the second Indian player is only bringing 4 non-CQC squads. Now, if you're going to put money on which side is going to win this engagement, who would you choose? And the Rangers are once more spotted before they can even reach the forest, and the mortars coming down. That is some incredible reaction speed by the 5th Panzer player, I think it is. Rangers come in here, meet 2 Panzer Grenadier squads, not gonna survive that encounter. Rangers LMG is here, first one encounters Pioneer squad, out goes the grenade, and bye-bye go the Rangers. Other Ranger squad sees this, comes around, thinks, oh, okay, maybe this Pioneer squad just used his grenade, he can't use it again, but they're gonna be a little bit too late. He's almost reloaded. He's reloaded, out goes the second grenade, bye-bye go the Rangers squad. That's 2 squads now, with 1 Pioneer squad. Third time's the charm, maybe? Is he going to reload his grenade? It looks like he's going to reload his grenade before they get to him again. So far this is 0-2. There's the grenade. Ah, 3-0. 3-0 to the Pioneers, and this is the lesson. This is the CQC Infantry lesson. You want to win those forest engagements. You want to win those town fights at short range. You use units with grenades, units with Molotov cocktails, units with flamethrowers. That's what you use. Sending units like this when your opponent is using CQC infantry, well, results in what you saw here with these Rangers. And the Allies have been almost totally excavated from this entire area that they held at the start of the game. And they have set up a defensive line here in the forest. Whether it can see much or do much, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Gavardia DP are going to do at the forest's edge here. They might stop some infantry assaults across this short space here, but maybe some other units could do that better. So Russian tanks going in here, going for the Panzer III kill. Artillery coming in. Oh my goodness, what was that? What did that? Was that artillery? My word, this is awful. Just huge shells flying through the air, and everything on the Allied side dying and dying and dying. And if we zoom out, we see you can see the difference in points now. The Axis side absolutely filled with the blue units, and the Allied side here looking pretty thin on the ground by this stage. And they're only aiming for this one objective. That's it. There's only one objective in this rectangle of battle. One objective is what you're fighting for, and on the Axis side, their objective is here. That's the one objective they have to defend. This is the one objective the Allies have to defend, and you've got an hour to defend it. Almost most of the time you do. And so we see towards the end of the game here, we're getting up to the 40 minute mark here. This objective has almost been taken, and it's taken a lot of fighting to get there. It's taken some sneaky recon plays. It's taken a Bjorn Stalin taking on a ridiculous amount of other tanks. It's taken planes, CQC Infantry by the droves, off-map artillery, mortars being fired so exquisitely quickly by some superhero reflexes. And the CQC infantry lesson coming in once more. Down goes a grenade. 2 of them dead already. Call in the off-map. Say, I've had enough of these goddamn CQC infantry in this goddamn forest. Just nuke the damn thing. And yeah, that's I can understand that kind of reaction, and the objective now changing to the Axis side, finally changing hands here in the 40th minute. And that's what I mean about long-term strategy, long-term build-up, correct use of units. And in this case, you know, this was mostly a huge success thanks to the Recon units spotting all these backline units and them just getting hammered by pinpoint accurate artillery, thanks to the included radio nearby too. And thanks to that, thanks to all those units that died to artillery and to rockets because they could be spotted, because they could be seen, Axis wins this rectangle. Whether they win the game overall is to be seen, but Axis has won this small rectangle that we have watched here. And at this stage, you know, it doesn't matter how many off-maps are dropped, how many planes are brought out. There isn't really any way for the Allies to take this back in any significant way. The force and points disparity at this stage is too large. So we'll play to the Allied players. One of them did quit. I think it was the 3rd US player quit at some point, maybe halfway through. Oh, and the infantry here, they didn't even make it as far as they did last time. They get caught out in the open by Panthers through this small gap in the forest line here where the road goes through. And these poor rifles are just suffering machine gun fire and HE shells. And that's very unfortunate for the 2nd Indian head play here, who just will not give up trying to take back this forest, no matter how many non-CQC infantry units have to be thrown at it. In comes a huge barrage by xylophones, takes out all the Panthers, Take that. You kill my rifles, I kill your Panthers. Seems fair. T-34 engaging a infantry gun there for some reason. And a PAC 88mm here right on the edge of the road here will be able to kill any kind of tanks that come out here. Has 230 penetration, not an anti-tank gun you ever really want to face with a tank. Unless, of course, you're just spamming, you know, a large quantity of light tanks, in which case, you know, its usefulness is diminished. But the objective barely held here by Axis, but held. And the rifles just not having a good time of it now, getting caught out by line infantry with their LMGs, and they're arriving at the forest in a ragtag band. The first group gets hit by a Molotov cocktail. That's a warm welcome, we say in Finland. We don't say that. I'm not Finnish. How do I know? In comes the second rifles, fighting a three-man Jakari squad, and the big mistake here of the rifles is that they were ordered to move. They were right-clicked and not Q-moved. And when infantry are moving, they take extra damage. That's why this three-man squad could kill it so quickly. So, in combat, almost never right-click move. Almost never. Off map coming down now on the Axis forces in the center of the crossroads here. Just so much artillery coming down onto the Allied forces now. It's and I would say another Rajakari here into the forest, not giving up their role as a sneaky recon provider of sight, going for another one in the last 16 minutes here, and not even being able to see units here does not matter if you are Axis. Let's see, where is nothing can actually be seen. The Axis cannot see what is inside this forest. It doesn't matter. You can guess that there's something inside there, and are they right? They are right. Look at these infantry getting hit, getting pinned down, these tanks falling back. So this is paying attention to the terrain. When you look at it from the Axis side here, where can your opponents come from? They can have infantry, anti-tank guns and so on in the forest here, but as can be seen with the recon squad sneaking ahead here, there isn't that much on this right side in the forest, and even another infantry squad trying to make it in, getting caught out by the Gvardia here. Will he make it? Oh, just makes it without getting pinned down. What about the second Gvardia? Isn't gonna get it. Receives some artillery fire for its trouble. But the reinforcement road here, you've got the road, they've got the forest for the soft units, and you've got this small opening here, and that's it. As long as these areas are covered, it's going to be very difficult for any units to make it close to this objective. Whereas, as we can see here, hiding infantry behind these buildings, even though the buildings are broken, just putting infantry units behind it, they can't be seen, but they can still affect the influence line, and they can still make you hold the objective. So Axis has a quite solid defense set up all along the forest and behind the buildings here, all along the forest line here. Anti-tank guns, infantry guns, infantry, half-tracks, tanks, CQC Infantry in the forest here, another anti-tank gun. It's essentially impossible to dig them out at this stage. But the Allies are still trying, and you know, I respect that. That's not giving up is an important part of ST2. Even in these cases, you know, sometimes being able to give a good account of yourself and kind of like a falling back defense, where you make, you know, you cost your opponent more than they take from you in terms of at least units, even if you are giving up ground. You know, because the game is so long, because it is most of the time 60 minutes, if you can gain that points advantage while losing ground, you can later take that ground back with your superior forces. So it's not always, you know, just trying your best to cling on to, you know, what you have at the moment, as would be the case in, you know, a 1v1 or a 2v2, where, you know, when the objectives are in the center and losing that ground can make you lose even more objectives, you know, you really do want to fight very strongly for that. But in the case of this map, Tannenberg, in the 10v10 mode, you don't have to play like that. So I find that, you know, in some ways this is a good mode for practicing things, and it's a good mode for getting to terms with trying smaller things without having to take care of the whole map by yourself. So if you'd like to try, you know, an infantry division and practice using the forests and anti-tank guns without so many tanks, you know, themselves, then you can do that, and you can choose a part of the map, perhaps like this rectangle, where you can put a lot of infantry to good use. Alternatively, you might want to try a tank division, in which case you might select one of the areas to engage in where it's a bit more open and you have some more corridors, such as these open areas here. But that's the benefit of the 10v10 mode, is that you have these options available to you, and any mistakes that you might make, it's not going to cost you the game. And it's not going to cost you very much, because you will still always have allies who are also bringing units to help you defend and to reinforce. So I find that a lot of the stress is kind of taken off your shoulders in this mode. And in some ways it's a good kind of training ground. The Axis artillery is still shooting at this area of the road here, and allies deciding they've had enough of that. They're just going to sit behind it. There's no point sitting in this barren wasteland anymore that is just being constantly bombarded. In come 2 rocket planes. First one gets suppressed, second one does get its rockets off. Down goes an M4. Will the PE2 get away? It's looking okay. Makes it out. Mortar's trying to find these xylophones, but they do scoot away just in time. Nice micro there by the 2nd Indian head player. And then, that's an important aspect of using rocket trucks, is after you shoot them, you move them. And if you can, you just you cue that order. So after you tell them where to attack, you hold shift and you right click somewhere, and after they finish firing, those trucks are gonna immediately start moving, and any counter battery fire that comes towards them is hopefully going to then miss. So there isn't much more to say here. I think we can speed it up. At this point it is up to the allies to do something, because the objective has been taken already. So the Axis players can sit back and can kind of sit back and say, your move. And they have very solidly reinforced the forests around the objective, and having the points advantage too. It's almost impossible for the allies to do anything. It doesn't matter how much they push or send at this point. I'm not sure it would really do them any good. More rockets coming in from the xylophone here, pinning things down but not really achieving much. And there are a lot of units on the map now. Wow. Let's just focus on our rectangle. So Allies making a furious dash here for the objective in the last minutes, throwing the Gvardia DP forwards, grabbing the objective, if only for a few short moments, firing the rockets at the infantry hiding in these buildings, pushing the line even further. But if this Gvardia DP goes down, they won't be able to hold it anymore. Line collapsing, and back to Axis. Gvardia DP gains suppression, the flags twitching back and forth now, and in come a 5 T-34-76s. Oh dear, the artillery raining down here at the back, and these Rajakari gaining another vantage point on the reinforcement road, and more hell for the reinforcements coming in, as they can now all be seen. The T-34-76s being fish in a barrel really on this road. Between the forests, there's nowhere for them to go except forwards or backwards, and down goes Gvardia DP, killed by the 122mm here. Oh, it's hard to watch. Let's speed it up. The second objective to the north here almost being taken too. The 2nd Indian head frantically trying to hold it with M16 MGMCs and an M4. M4 gets retreated, but the Panther is maybe afraid to come out because of all these M10A1 destroyers. Doesn't quite grab the objective. 6 minutes left on the clock. Tango Desert Nikki taking an artillery shell to the face there. Recon Infantry now also spotting this open area here where all the reinforcements are, but armed rifles coming in. Looks like they're gonna spot the Rajikari, and there we go. And everything will turn to shoot them now. 5 men dead. 6 men dead, but they get out alive. So the Sissy now, who have both a 1,000-meter range machine gun and sniper rifle, taking out these Gavadia because the Gavadia can't reach them. The range is too long. The Gavadia's machine guns are only 750 meters, which is about here. And so the Sissy can just freely shoot them over this 800-meter range here without receiving any fire back. The Rajikari are coming in, it seems, for a sneaky finisher with a Molotov cocktail. More infantry are being sent now through the forest, trying to find the Rajikari that was spotted here, and the Tanko Designiki finds it, but it was on a move order. The move order made them take more damage. They died to the Rajikari so quickly. Could have taken them out, potentially, if they had been Q-moved instead. More rockets coming in, this time from Katyusha. Into the center here. Does get hits on that Pak 43, takes it out. That was one of the main problems here, that 230 millimeters of penetration. The Rajikari takes out the Gavadia here. More infantry are starting to be moved up, and another tank rush. Final last stand of the last 3 minutes is maybe happening here from the Russian player. Tanks are coming down the road. Looks like Shermans are being moved. Half tracks are being moved. Out they come. Out comes the M3 Scout. Gets shot by the Marder. Will have spotted some of the things for the Russian players to see. Let's see. And actually the Allies cannot see much. To the Allies, they are fighting a few tanks, maybe a few units here, but when you turn on the neutral mode and you see just how many units there are in the forests all the way around here, in the buildings here, and they're just bunching up their units. There's no spread out to the left side here. There are no further attempts by the second Indian head player to take this forest back anymore after 3 or so failed attempts. Each attempt quite horrific. But the Russians have almost pushed this objective back, just can't quite get it. And the Finnish infantry are moving up now, taking out these Gavadia DP. And they're not going to win against the Gvardia DP are not going to win against four infantry squads and the Rajikari behind them. Jumbos being pushed in and being targeted by the 122mm artillery with their heat shells. Are they going to get a hit? Down goes one jumbo. Down goes the second jumbo. Oh my goodness. 2 huge kills there. Huge kills right in the last minute or so. Down goes the Su-85 too. My goodness, and that placement of a anti-tank gun is fantastic. Seeing right down that entrance there where vehicles might come from. The 20th Panzer player covering the road, the Rapana player covering the other entrance here that vehicles can come in, and anything that just came into sight was annihilated, taken out by tanks, by anti-tank guns, and they were ready. They had their positioning. Last Gvardia DP will go down here, and the objective will be totally out of their sight, out of Allies' sight. A very large rocket barrage coming in here by the 2nd Indian Head. It won't actually do anything though. We're on to the last 10 seconds here, and we'll stop it here. And so we see we started around around here. I think this was the center line here, and recon units were spotting all of the units in the back here with a radio unit, which brought down artillery hell on top of their back line. All of their anti-air was taken out. Any reinforcements were getting pounded if they stayed still for 5 seconds, and so there was just no room to breathe really for the Allies. And then you compound that with the not bringing CQC infantry units into the forest here to do that kind of fighting. Now, there was good use of mortars at the start when they had mortars, but once those first few mortars were left, I didn't really feel like there was any further solid mortar use other than on the Axis side, especially targeting those rangers that got caught out in the open there. And just to reiterate, the control group, selecting those mortars you have and pressing Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and then anytime you want that real quick mortar use, that legendary reflex mortar play that we saw here, you just can press 1, press T, click where you want them to fire, and that's it. You did it in 2 seconds. You can have those mortars firing on units, and as you can see here, it was so effective. And the same thing for the artillery, the heavier artillery that was used for killing all of the units in the back line here, for pounding this passageway here, this forest passageway. Just look at this, look at the wrecks. Tanks and half-tracks and tanks 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 and tanks. All of that just because they could be spotted, because they could be seen. And they could be seen thanks to recon units. A lot of the time I think people don't respect or they don't give recon units the respect they deserve. But if you use them correctly or in the ways they're intended to be used, you can see here, I think, in this match the devastation they can bring and ultimately how that can help you to win. And we see Axis has a huge control over this area here, and the Allies are just kind of bottled into one small area that's left. And for a time they were even being spotted in this last small area and bombarded too. That's it for this video, guys. I hope that was entertaining. I know it was a bit long, and of course I hope that helped you understand some of the smaller details of the game, such as using CQC Infantry or artillery in quick response and bringing the right units into the right locations. Of course, the great recon play as well, and of course the longer game, and not giving up immediately, understanding that the first 10 minutes, even 20 or 30 minutes is not really going to decide the game a lot of the time, and just being able to fall back, I would say valiantly, but cost efficiently. Not just sacrificing units because you can sacrifice them, not taking a fight just because you can take it. Take the fight when it's in your advantage to take it. Otherwise, maybe don't take it, and take it another time when you think you do have the advantage. That could be exemplified in some ways by the 2nd Indian Head infantry rushes towards this forest, when they weren't enough, and they weren't well supported enough to be able to achieve it. And each time they got caught out and they got decimated, really decimated, without really achieving anything even. They maybe took out a couple of infantry units, and that would be it for like the 12 infantry units that 2nd Indian Head sent. And that's a really bad trade. So I hope you can see that just sending units, and not just sending like one kind of unit, don't just send infantry. If you're sending infantry into the forest here, support them with tanks, maybe bombard the forest with artillery first. And the 2nd Indian Head player did do that to some extent. There were rockets going into the forest here, but the infantry weren't supported in this area here. So the infantry here were suppressed or pinned down, and the infantry could come, but then they got caught out by the panther here, the panthers, right? Or they got caught out here by the mortars. And once that was done, there wasn't really anything for them to do because they didn't have control of this area here. It's too close. Like between here and here is too close really for you to be able to safely insert infantry most of the time. Maybe the northern tip here could have been safe, and if they'd taken a bit of a longer route maybe and tried to get in when the tanks and stuff were still back here, they could have done it perhaps more successfully. But that was it. That was a real long run by the Axis infantry, starting from the forest at the back here and moving all the way through to hold this part here. And again on the southern side the same. There was no push on the southern side, but that was a kind of false attack in which infantry, recon infantry, were pushed through, and it looked like nothing was there, and the nothing that they didn't see caused them artillery hell. So that's the conclusion that I would draw from this is, use your recon, try to think about your units, make sure you use the right unit for the right task. You can win forest fights not only with CQC infantry, you can use your mortars to do the same thing as well, and then just run in with your other infantry and get the surrender. No Molotov cocktails necessary. But if you don't have mortars, or you're not using mortars, or they run out of ammo, then having that CQC infantry is going to be invaluable. And then likewise for these longer range engagements, for example here, between the forest and the light forest and the forest here, having infantry units with the longer range weapons, with the 500-meter rifles, is going to serve you better than SMGs and Molotov cocktails, because nobody's going to throw a Molotov cocktail 500 meters. I mean, not unless there's Superman. There's no Superman in ST2. So you're looking at your units and you're thinking, what do they damage? What's the range at which they damage things? And then you're looking at the terrain and the key features, and you're thinking, okay, here's a forest. I can put these kinds of units in the forest, but what can they see? What can they shoot? What about over here? This one can see down the road. This building can also see down the road. Maybe it's a good place for a recon unit, things like that. So you could spend a lot of time looking at these maps and using the C key to see what is the line of sight here, and then what kind of units are going to be here. You can get sight on the road. What kind of units come down the road? Vehicles, tanks. What can you put here? Anti-tank gun. Maybe just a tank. This would be a nice spot for it, right here in this forest. And so you go around, you use the C key, you try to think about these kinds of things. And if you just play one specific division, that can also help you to become more familiar with it, because you're not trying to understand this through the lens of units that you're not familiar with. So if you always play the same division, that can help you then to be able to learn these other things faster, because those other variables are not changing. So maybe that's something you can also keep in mind. But that's it for this video. I was going on a little bit long at the end there, but that is the conclusion of the conclusion. So thanks for watching, guys, and come back next time.